I want to share with you today a phrase that has both haunted me and challenged me for the last 11 years. I heard it at the very first LEAD event. We were in this tiny, tiny little room with no windows. It was hot, and I think there were even flip charts involved. We've come a long way. But someone said this phrase in one of their talks. I don't remember who it was, but it's challenged me since I heard it. Critique by creation. Critique by creation. See, I think we are probably incredibly highly tuned critical machines. Everything we do, we look through the lens of a critical eye. Just imagine thumbing through some Amazon reviews or Yelp reviews, or maybe just log into Twitter for a minute where you complain against the whole world, or you complain about a meeting that you're in. Maybe one of my favorites, GroupMe, the snarky GroupMe chats that happen during annual conference and other church events that critique everything that's happening at that place. Or those group texts with all your friends that sometimes sustain you through the really hard challenges of ministry. But we are incredibly gifted at being critical. And this person suggested that maybe the best critique we could offer is to create the alternative. The best we could offer is to create that which we wish we could see. And so I spent the last 10 years trying to figure out how to be more creative. And I want to share a little bit about what I've learned in that journey. And the first is that critique has a very close cousin, curiosity. See, both critique and curiosity start from the same place. They look at something and say, something's not quite right. Something's off. The difference is that curiosity leads to questions like how, why, what if? Where critique lands at the end at a dead-end street where we just say, this is wrong, this is bad, I don't like it, and here's what's wrong. Curiosity creates questions, ideas. And what we found is that curiosity leads to something called creativity. When you start to look at the world and you say, something's not quite right, the system's broken, there's something amiss here, and you start asking questions and seeking understanding and asking others what's happening and how do they see it, all of a sudden you start to create new ideas that you didn't even know existed. And what I found is that I've worked with people all over the world, and every person I've ever encountered has the ability to be creative. It's just creating the space for them to ask those questions of curiosity, to gather some data, to listen to others, and then be able to create some ideas that we never thought even existed. Curiosity leads to creativity, and creativity leads to lasting innovation. That is, organizations and people that continuously look to improve their organization or how they're operating. Continuously change, continuously improve, and always looking and always asking how, what if, why, in a way that leads to creativity and improvement. So I want to share with you how these practices have kind of developed in the work and in the ministry that I currently serve, the Commission on Higher Education. Now, there's a phrase we use in our organization that I think is just really helps all of us root our work when we're involved in change, and that is this solution, this idea is probably wrong and definitely incomplete. Probably wrong and definitely incomplete. And so I hope as you listen, you might hear ways and share ways in which we can improve the work that we're doing in our mission. The Commission on Higher Education started some 70 years ago. It started in the state of Georgia for the 2 annual conferences that exist in Georgia to serve and support campus ministries and Methodist-related higher education. Today, we still are in that mission, but we've moved beyond just the borders of Georgia. When I got there about 6.5 years ago, it was like every other Methodist institution you can imagine. We had declining revenue, declining membership. We had internal arguments and strife. We had debate about theology and practicality of ministry. We had a sense of competition. Definitely, we encountered the whole world through a lens of scarcity, of not having enough of whatever, people, resources, money, When I got there, I was like, I don't know even where to begin. I had just left a 4-year term at the General Board of Higher Education, and those of you who've worked in a general agency, fun is probably not the word you would look back and describe those years. Challenging, interesting, pressing, formative, those are words, but fun, probably not the words you would use to describe. There's a mix of pressure and politics, and I had just left all that, and I was like, what do I do? And I remembered my days in campus ministry when I was working with college students, and fun was absolutely what we did. It was deep fun, it was profound fun, but we enjoyed each other. We developed trust with each other. We got curious about each other, and we were able to create a ministry that served more people like us. And so when I got to the ministry at the commission, the first thing we decided to do was start to have some fun together. We went indoor skydiving. Some folks went and played golf. We had cookouts. We went to Braves games and brought the families, because the families are just as much a part of our ministries as those who lead them. And we started to have fun together. And when you start to have fun together, it actually starts to make you curious about the other person, because you see them as a human, not as an object, not as someone who's taking the money that you could have, or someone who thinks theologically different than you. And you start to have fun with them, and you start to ask questions and figure out, oh, wow, they have a lot of things in common with each other. And as we started to hang out together, we got curious with each other, we soon moved into that creative space where we identified, you know what? We have shared values, shared practices as ministry leaders. We have them, we still have them today. We identified there's 6 of them. There's worship, there's discipleship with students, leadership development, outreach to the campus, mission beyond the campus, and innovation that we're going to constantly change and evolve to serve students. We realized that even though many of us had different approaches and practices regarding those, maybe even different theological frameworks by which we engaged in those practices, we shared them equally important in part of our ministry. And so it gave us a platform to talk to each other. And then as we started to create these shared practices, we realized that some people were particularly gifted at discipleship, while others were great at leadership development, and still others at worship. And we realized we had more than enough resources among us to grow our ministries, and we started to support each other across our 17 ministries at the time. Some people were the leaders of discipleship, and they inspired others to build discipleship programs in places that didn't exist. And we grew, and we grew. And then one day, the campus ministers came and said, you know what? Let's start talking about ourselves as one ministry on many campuses rather than all these competitive ministries loosely associated. We realized that we were greater than the sum of our parts. And it started to capture some imagination for us. It reduced the anxiety about money. We realized we had more than enough money. We just had to be more strategic about it. We had more than enough resources and people and expertise, and we were able to grow. In those 4 years, we grew 40% the number of students we served. Just before the pandemic started, we averaged 4,000 in worship in the state of Georgia every week, completely made of young adults. That makes us the 3rd largest congregation in the entire denomination, completely composed of young adults. We grew. And it captured the imagination of the annual conferences, and our funding grew. In a world of scarcity, the church found something to invest in, and we created a different story because we were bigger than just the sum of our parts. We were bigger than the differences that existed between us, and we had shared values, and we were creative, and things began to happen. Well, the beauty about this, as I shared, when you have creative things, it becomes contagious, and lasting innovation starts to set in. And our board of directors came to us and said, you know what? We have all these resources and all these things and all these people, and something's happening here. Are there things we can do to help other campus ministries in other parts of the world? And so we started to set out and ask, are there ways we can engage and support campus ministry to reduce the sense of loneliness and isolation and scarcity that exists on our college campuses? And so we started to offer our services and partner with other annual conferences. And today we've moved from 2 conferences in Georgia to 7 across the U.S. More than 150 campus ministries connected together. And the way we work with those conferences is the same thing we did with us. We start off by, we need to understand what's happening. So we do surveys, we do small groups, we do focus groups. We try to make sense of what's happening because we believe as an organization, the best people to shape the future of an organization are those who experience it the most, the front lines of the organization, the campus ministers, the chaplains, the students. And so we listen to them, and then we bring that feedback up and we begin to identify shared values, opportunities for improvement, and we build relationships, and people become curious, and the organization becomes creative, and things start to change, and those ministries begin to grow. And so during the COVID, at the beginning of COVID, we were looking around and we're like, gosh, what do we do? We know that every church in the world is never going to be the same. We have all these resources, these young adults that we employ in our team to help other campus ministries. We have all these campus ministers, these creatives that we hired in the workforce to help grow our ministries. What do we do with this? And so we launched a Foundry Creative Group, which is a full-service creative design studio. We work to help improve organizations to make them better through creative design and user-centered design. And we do everything from logo design and marketing plans to turning churches, pivoting them, new identities, new mission statements, new value statements, and help organizations improve. And the same way we interact with them is the same way we interact with our campus ministries. Listen to the people. Generate a sense of curiosity among the congregation. Allow creativity to bloom and lasting change to take root. We still have other things because once innovation sets in, you start to look beyond that. We're launching this year something called Coaching Cohort because we think the only way we can grow as an organization is better and healthier leaders. And so creating a sort of coaching certification program, the first one of its kind, dedicated to coaching young adults and those who work with young adults. So young adults in college could get be certified as an executive coach through the International Coaching Federation, and those who work with young adults, think about people who are in youth ministry or in campus ministry, who work in the dean's office. Any of those who have high touch with young adults have an opportunity to empower them and coach them and strengthen them and disciple them, could get formative education. We have other ideas about back office function, how to help more ministries be more focused on the mission of their work rather than the institution of it. Now, I don't know what lies ahead for our denomination, or any of the denominations for that matter. I'm afraid that more deconstruction is yet to come. What I wonder is, what will it look like for us to work together? What will the new connectionalism that exists between us evolve and grow into? The one thing I hope we realize is that we have more than enough. We have more than enough people. We have more than enough financial resources. We have more than enough expertise. We have more than enough opportunity. All we really need is to create a sense of curiosity about how we can work together. How? Why? What if? So that together we might be able to create that which we wished we could see. Thank you.